Alright guys, Touchpoint back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoyed your day so far, and welcome to episode 24 of the Breaking Point podcast. Lots to talk about once again today, joined just by Line Man. We'll explain that here in a couple of seconds, but yeah, thanks for all the love on the episodes recently. They've been absolutely blowing out the park, and well, a lot more to discuss CDL wise, lots of drama. You know the drill at this point. Let's get into things, Lion. Well, firstly, we have to explain why Austin isn't here. There's been well, this is classic USA, I think. I was just talking about this with Omar, that we don't really seem to get internet outages in the UK, or like the power doesn't go out too often. I don't know if it's the same with you, Lion, but Austin's been having some issues. His power in his house just went out like an hour ago. So we were like, if it comes back on, you can join, but if not, we'll just wing it ourselves, Lion.
Yeah, poor guy, man.
Yeah, it's tough,
I don't know
right?
how that happens so often, but nah, it doesn't happen here ever. Like, just a US thing, I swear.
There's loads of stock. Like, I think there's loads of stock. Like, I hope he's all right. Because if the power went off here, if it's in the winter, like, I'd be cold as hell. Like,
Well,
so
just
I don't
put on
know.
a hoodie. Like, he's fine.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
fine.
sure he's fine, but I don't know. I feel like it's happened before, but not on a podcast day. But it's what it
It's
is.
unfortunate.
My
Yeah,
voice is also
poor
kind of
timing.
shot. I'm sure you guys can tell. But unfortunately, I woke up on Monday feeling pretty under the weather. My voice is a little bit dodgy, and then classic because I haven't been like unwell in legit probably since start of 2020, maybe 2019, like ages, right? Because of lockdown or whatever. Just haven't really been anywhere to catch anything. And then I felt unwell, and then I had there was this like PS Tournament Open Series with PlayStation that I casted it with Ton in the end of May. It was actually the start of June, but it was for the month of May. And then they asked me to do it again. So really cool stuff, and really enjoyed it. But like it kind of destroyed my voice because it was like 8, 9 hours of casting from like 4 p.m. till 2 a.m. Not the ideal day. Sometimes that's just how the luck goes. So you'll have to deal with a voice like this. I'm feeling better today. Thanks for all the well wishes in the comments if you haven't to also watch the videos on occasion. So lots to talk about today, Line. Plenty of topics. Maybe I don't know if I'll speak too much. The voice is a little bit questionable. Don't want to lose it completely, but we'll do a good job, no doubt. The
Of course.
first topic that I kind of wanted to dive into is the whole champs discussion because we had it a little bit last week with Octane saying, look, I think, or Octane said, every team should get to go to champs, and a lot of the other people agreeing that, yeah, due to all the change in circumstances, Seattle looking somewhat better on LAN, they should allow everyone there. Now, Clayster came out and said, like, yeah, at the end of the day, if you can't be better than 33% of the league, that's on you. Like, stop whining effectively. But like that's one side of it. The other side of it that a lot of people have been discussing that Octane mentioned in this video was that it's just too easy to win champs nowadays. There's not the same gauntlet run that you have to make that you had to do a few years ago. It used to be an absolute, honestly, like you had to go through the grind to win champs. If you won champs, it was well deserved. You can talk all that we want about like evil geniuses winning a World War II being a fluke, which, fair enough. If you run that event a load of times, they probably don't win it too many times, but they certainly deserved and earned the victory with all the series they won. Whereas nowadays, the teams that have the best seeding have a very easy run. So we can talk about that a little bit, Lion. I'll just throw it to you, and you can, carry on as you see fit.
Yeah. I understand both sides because yeah, it sucks for the teams that don't make it. But obviously, if they don't win enough series throughout the year, you don't really deserve it. But I saw a comment on Twitter about if every team had an academy team, it would make sense for the top four academy teams to play in champs, make it 16 teams, do pools, and just have the seeding based off where you finished in the league. And so if you are bottom four, that means that you're third seed, probably, or fourth seed, depending. And that would make it a lot more difficult to win because you might get into a group with FaZe and Toronto. And it's like, all right, you're not making it out anyway. And so who knows? I think if they could actually have academy teams for every single team and it was forced, like enforced, then it would actually allow those players who are in the challenges to be able to come up and one event a year be able to show their, skill up against the top teams and see whether they actually like fit in. But for now, I think what we mentioned last week was the play-in tournament for those bottom four. So they don't get excluded, but they also don't have a free run in to the tournament. Um, I also agree that the fact that FaZe can win two series to win champs, it
I think it's
doesn't
probably
count as
three,
champ.
but I don't
Is it
actually know
three?
because we haven't seen the bracket yet. Last year it was three. They start in
Okay.
winners round two, and then if they win that, they're immediately top three, and
Yeah, and then they
then
win.
if they
Okay.
win winners finals. So last year Dallas
Yeah.
beat Ultra, and then they beat FaZe twice, and that was all they had to do to win champs.
Okay. Well, even then, you're playing only 2 teams to win champs.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
yeah.
ridiculous. You should have to play like at least 5 series to be able to win a ring. So if there was groups, then that pretty much, so you'd have to play 3 games in groups and then probably 3 games in the bracket to win. And I feel like that's probably perfect. But I don't know if, academy teams are actually going to get brought in or, or enforced, because it's already 25 million for the league, and then having to pay an extra 4 players for another spot. It's like, who knows? But right now, we've talked about it before. It's just not ideal, but it's just where we're at.
Banging idea though, like, because that's the thing with champs back in the day. And in a way, I liked it. In a way, I didn't. Because let's say you look at Black Ops 4, and you have to go through the grinder to win champs, no doubt. But you had the season playoffs in Miami right before champs, and that was like champs was the top 32 teams in the world, the 16 pro teams, and then the 16 best amateur teams that made it through. And E United won, right, at both events. And in the playoffs for the season playoffs, it was basically just the same thing, but without all the other teams. Now, I liked it in a way because you've got so many teams there. I've said it in a video a couple of times. It's like a celebration of Call of Duty, right? That's what you want. Final event of the season. This is the best teams that they have to offer. All countries in the world are going to be present, and the current format you don't really get that. And I think that they're certainly missing some of the magic that champs used to have of some of those crazy losers runs. Now, I was always pretty critical of the champs format, the way the groups worked. The fact that, let's say Optic, for example, in World War II, they finished top 24, but they only lost one series to the eventual champions, right? They went 2-1 in their group, but because they didn't win a map, and of course, look, they should have won a map, whatever. But at the end of the day, they got 3-0'd. Sorry to bring this up again, line, but but by the team that won the event, right? And that's the only series they lost the entire tourney, and they went out as a result, which I always thought was a bit of a stupid system. So. But I agree though, like having a group play with a load of academy teams, the question is like, it would get, I only just thought of this, but there would be a lot of conflict of interest involved, right? Like, let's say you had Optic Academy in the same group as the Optic team, then like there's some, unless you could make that so they weren't matching up with each other. But like, surely over the course of a tourney, it's going to happen that a team is going to play their academy squad, and there's an
Yeah.
incentive from the management to say, let them win because we want our actual, you know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
But then you look back at like AW Ghosts when it was Optic versus Optic Nation.
They used to do that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the best matchups because it's such a rivalry between like the 2 different sides of Optic. But to touch on the playoffs point, I think that was amazing back in Black Ops 4 because they had the season and they did have that extra event at the end of the year. That was the big one. What I think would be dope now was, remember, I think a couple days ago, Crone tweeted out about
World Cup.
teams from countries. Yeah, World Cup. That would be so sick. Like after playoffs, to have all the best players from every country come together and play in a big
Agreed.
old
Yeah.
tournament. Like that would be so cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
100%. That was a really cool idea. Like, I think as Crone did when he actually wrote it out into which players could be on which team, you would have to be careful about how you allow like the US or whatever to make their team work. But like, I think
yeah,
you'd get a lot of like like the Spanish team. I'm sure the French team could do some damage. Like, it would be really interesting to see like everyone. This is why I kind of I think Americans who just follow American sports are missing out on some of the beauty of like international football and just international
yeah,
competition in general. Because there's something so special about that, and it
yeah,
probably doesn't work to the same degree in Call of Duty when there's only like a couple of countries that are particularly good. But, who knows what the future looks like. But especially with the Euros going on right now, it's been top of mind.
yeah,
But yeah, I guess just to go back to the point about like how easy it is to win champs. Just wanted to run through OpTic's run when they won champs in 2017 in comparison to what Dallas did. So last year, Dallas to win champs in the new format, to get the rings, they got the throne, all this type of stuff. But of course, like you want the season to mean something, right? Like that's the idea. There's seeding for champs, that's important. And like, of course, they want the seeding to mean quite a lot because you play an entire season for it. So I get that. But at the same time, if Dallas, as they were last year, and maybe it's the same bracket this year with FaZe are going to be number one, they go into the bracket first seed, and we've heard all the talk about second seed being very important. So I imagine that first and second seed both get the double bye, and then if they win one series, they get to winners final, one series to grand final, then one more series to win the entire thing. So last year, Dallas did exactly that. Beat Ultra, beat FaZe, dropped them down to losers. FaZe won, came back up to winners, won again, and that's how it went. Now, OpTic in 2017, when they won champs, and pretty much every team has played something like this. I think OpTic played a couple more series just because they lost to the winners finals. But so they played groups, right? And they played Epsilon, they played Echo Fox, they played threes up in their groups. So 3 series already in group play. Then they beat Mind Freak Black in the first round of winners. And that I remember like specifically a Retaliation Harpwood that was pretty good in that series. Then they beat Splice. That was a crazy series. I don't know if you remember that one, like a game 5 throwback. Like it was
They
like
should have
6-4.
series
I was gonna say,
they
yeah,
were
did
down
Mance choke or
2-1.
something? I forget.
It was what was the map? It was
Throwback, right? With the
no, it
little
wasn't
trains in the
throwback.
middle?
The
Was it
map
not?
4. No. It was the one with the
Map
rock
4.
and the
Ooh.
rocks and then the wall runs on the right side, and it was called like oh
Breakout,
come
maybe?
on. It
Was
was
it?
breakout.
Yeah, with the
Breakout. Yeah,
rocks.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And they were down 220 to 180, and they just won the last 2 hard points to stay in the tournament or stay
Wow.
in winners. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then won game 5. It was amazing.
Game 5 was a banger
Amazing,
as
amazing.
well. Like I think Zero had
Yeah.
reactive. Like that was a cracking series. Maybe you have to revisit that one on the Breaking Point channel at some point. My ideas, I have like an ideas spreadsheet of videos that I want to make, either like longer
Yeah.
ones or shorter ones. And there's like 120 things in there now, so I need to start cracking on. But
Just
that could
fucking
be
pump
another
them
one.
out, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many good. Like I don't know, some of them could be good short, some of them could be good like short videos, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to think title thumbnail first, but we'll get there. I have a list of
Of
things I
course,
want
I
to do.
forgot. I forgot about that.
You know how it
Your
goes.
method to your madness, mate.
But yeah. But yeah, okay. So they beat Splice, then they beat FaZe, obviously a solid team. Then they lost to Envy in the winners finals. Then they beat LG and losers. Then they beat Envy twice to win the entire thing. So that is a bracket run if I've ever seen it. Nowadays,
Mate,
not the case. So
Optic played the same amount of series after winners finals as Dallas played in the whole
yeah,
series, the whole tournament.
yeah, crazy
That's
to think about,
crazy.
right? I mean, I guess like the 2 series against Envy were best of fives, and Dallas at least had to play like a best of 9. But even that was a best of
Yeah.
9 with a 1-0. So and they only
Mm,
played a few maps because it was like 5-1 or something. So
yeah.
yeah, craziness to be honest. Certainly something I want to keep my eyes on. I think that the CDL, of course, like there's a lot of people from the CDL that have come in from like the NFL, right? That are running the show, and I get what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to make this. They see the sports model ecosystem that works in the US, and they're like, all right, let's emulate that. And I get it, right? Like we want to be a profitable business, understandable, but you've got to understand some of the flair and some of the magic that came from the old COD events, especially the
Yeah.
open stuff. And I think a lot of people and players are missing that. And while I must say that those crazy long days when the stream would start like really early and would finish at like 7 o'clock in the morning my time, like I don't necessarily miss those. I think some of the players do because they loved like just playing match after match, even though maybe that wasn't the best for them, right? Like in theory, you
Mm,
should be, you're probably going to get a bit knackered after a while, but and lose some momentum. But I think we've lost a bit of that in Call of Duty the last couple of years. I think some of the new fans, let's say you've come into COD like the last couple of years, as I think a lot of people probably have done, haven't seen some of the crazy tournaments that we used to have. Like the difference to me between and you went to champs one year, right? Am I not
dude,
mistaken
I
about
went
that?
2016 and
Oh yeah,
2019.
yeah. Exactly. So banging
Yeah,
events and like I went
unbelievable.
to London 2019, Anaheim 2019, Birmingham 2018, and like the atmosphere and the feel of those events was much more grassroots than it was at the first like CDL London Home Series event that I went to
Mm,
in 2020. So
yeah,
there's time to grow and improve, but I just think there's some things that they need to think about how they implement from the old times. I'm sure the players have good feedback on stuff like this as well, but
mm,
yeah, they're doing their thing. We're in year 2. We're making strides. We talk quite often about things they could do to improve stuff, which hopefully they listen to constructively, I guess. We
yeah.
want the best for the league, right? I think that's the same with a lot of people. Like we would love to see this league succeed as much as it can. I don't think anyone who's talking about this is like trying to slam the league or whatever, as I might put in a video title. But you know what I
Yeah.
mean. I don't know if you have any
Yeah,
last thoughts on
I've
that.
got
Go
one
on.
more comment about the fact that the season has to matter. I do agree it does, but there's tournaments all year. Last year it was more of a big deal because it was the 8 teams. It was kind of a strange format, and so the champs seeding it did matter more because it was like the only full event where every team was there. Whereas this year it's kind of like we get 5 champs and then a bracket tournament at the end.
Mm.
So it's like we don't really need the season to matter that much at the end because we already have tournaments throughout the year that are full tournaments. And so, maybe every team being at champs isn't really a bad thing, and the seeding is actually more important for that rather than just cutting them out entirely. But
Yeah, I think
you
that's
know,
a fair point. I mean, I've seen other people suggest as well, maybe like have some sort of big mid-season tournament or something, and if you win that, you get like you're guaranteed to go to champs or something. I don't know how you'd make it work, but
mm,
something that because right now Seattle can win they can win stage 5 major and not qualify, which is
yeah.
like that probably seems like a bit of an issue to me.
Maybe if you
So
just win a stage, you're qualified.
yeah, exactly, something like that. You get auto
Mm,
qualified if you win a tournament or um,
yeah,
there's probably better ways to do it, but I guess they'll figure it out. The other thing I do want to talk about, which is the World Series of Warzone. I didn't get too much chance to watch this. There was a lot of discussion on it though, because obviously there's Warzone pros, right, who are Twitch streamers. A lot of them are making a lot of money off this, right? And some of the top ones, former CoD players. You can look at Tommy, you can look at Rated, for example, who I occasionally watch their stream and see what's going on. Not the biggest Warzone fan, but to be fair, the World Series of Warzone stuff it actually seemed to be done pretty well. I didn't really see too many hiccups. Players seem to get in the lobby, and I think it's much better to be honest. Albeit when kill races were first a thing back in like Fortnite, when they'd play against like public match kids to just try and get
yeah,
as most kills. That used to be so much fun to watch. To be honest, like watching Nick
yeah.
Merckx and like Aiden or whatever try and
Ninja,
yeah, exactly. It was so much fun, like seeing those tournaments. It's crazy.
yeah,
Um, but like Neo and Amp Media or like Gage, that's what they call him, right? Like that trio going around and doing the
yeah,
kill races and all like that was class. But I get that probably not the most competitive thing ever. So they want get everyone in the lobby. And it's interesting the Optic guys did particularly well. I think they fell out of the top 10 in the end, but for a time they were like second or third or something. It does just make you think when the off season comes around, a lot of these pros are going to start doing these Warzone tournaments, and maybe some of the pros that aren't having the best success consider like, hang on a second, maybe I can just play Warzone full time as opposed to because if you're a guy like apparently Scrap said this on his stream recently. I haven't got to see the clip, but apparently he said that he might consider next season just playing Warzone because like he's not making a lot of money on Paris because they're paying him like minimum salary. He can make way more money, I think, playing Warzone in terms of prize money and Twitch subscriptions, kind of what his brother's doing. So, and they're going to be very good against a lot of the top Warzone pros that they'll probably push out of the upper echelon. So I think a lot of things that will develop on this line.
yeah. To touch on scraps, you know how most tournaments it's duos. And it's like you
Yeah,
always
yeah,
see Tommy's tweeting out every week won the $400,000 what's its name tournament, and
yeah.
it's like this man's making like 100K every couple weeks from just kill races, and it's like okay, if Scraps and Waskin became like a duo on that game, they would be untouchable if they played it full time, and if they became like a streaming duo. Have you ever seen? There's a streaming these two twins called the X2 twins on Fortnite, and they would have like setups one on this side, one on this
Oh
side, and they would
wow.
switch between their POVs, and you could like watch them in tournaments and stuff. And they're from Australia, and their content was amazing. They won
Wow.
like this Fortnite tournament in Australia and became like massive streamers with like 10,000 viewers, and they would just be competitive players switching between their POVs when they died and stuff. And I think like doing that for COD or for Warzone. For those two, with their like comedic value that they have, they could be like massive and do so much for COD because they're so good as well. But
That is a
yeah, to touch
cracking
on
shout. Yeah, go on.
yeah, to touch on World Series of Warzone, I think it was really entertaining because even someone like myself who isn't that big on Warzone, um, I actually understood what was happening and the lobbies were real strong and it was cool to see, pros who haven't played the game for months to actually come in and be competitive. And these Warzone players who haven't played against top tier players before getting like scared to like go into gunfights with like formal and stuff. Like, it's really cool to see, but it just shows the skill gap between professional Call of Duty players and players who play it a little bit more socially and more for the content. And it was awesome to watch, but I don't know if I would sit down and watch the whole thing. Like I just went in, checked up, saw who was coming like top 10, and then checked out. But it was
Yeah,
cool.
I agree. I'm in the same boat as you. The Scraps Waskin stuff is really interesting though, because I totally agree. And like they have huge personalities already. Like they were by far the biggest brands on London when they were there.
Yeah.
The amount, like even London still tweet to this day and get people in the replies being like, drop scraps, whatever. Therefore you're losing. All this type of
Yeah.
stuff. And there was like a massive drama through the offseason. Like my videos on the fact that the London guys and Waskin and Scraps were getting dropped. I always remember being so surprised at how well they did because I was like, I didn't realize that those guys had as much like force behind them within the community. And also they're very talented. So there's a lot going for them. At the same time, it's kind of a weird one because if you are Scraps and you decide, all right, Waskin, like let's just team up and do this Warzone thing you're mentioning, then you're kind of chalking off the CDL route unless there's expansion, right? Like if expansion comes through, then I think teams would still consider Scraps and Waskin even if they left to play Warzone. But at the same time, like you're looking at Rated and Tommy and you're thinking, well, do I even need the CDL? And obviously you don't know where Warzone's going, right? Like I guess there's a
Mm,
fear that you miss the boat to a degree, but
yeah.
not necessarily.
Well, if they keep hosting big tournaments and actually do it right, they can like extend the lifespan of that game quite a while. But another person who made it instead of playing in the CDL was Blast. And you don't even
Yeah,
have to be winning tournaments. You just have to stream consistently and have like good viewers, high subs, and you'll still be making more than you make in the CDL. So there's always an option for those guys. Like any player that wants to do it who has a big personality, they can just leave the league and find ways to make money outside of it, which is not something you could say about COD for the previous 10 years before that.
yeah, very true. Like Mutex, for example. Like I remember it was 20, was it what, November 2019 where he got signed to Dallas as an S&D analyst, and then he said like, you remember that?
Oh,
He was like, oh, he did his
yes.
like famous rant about how like you'll regret dropping me or whatever. That's absolute
Yeah.
class, by the way. But and like everyone was just like, okay, yeah, he just killed his career, like job done. And he's like one of the biggest Warzone streamers. Like fair play, but that is crazy to me. Um,
Yeah.
so like it just shows, right? If you're really talented at these games, you know what you're doing. Like you can do a really good job, and that's why a lot of these pros, I like get, if you're a pro player, you want to focus fully on content or you want to focus fully on winning or whatever, which is true. But at the same time, like, a lot of people want to watch people who are really good at the game. And that's what Warzone
Yeah.
has opened the opportunity to. And like, in theory, it should be great for COD and should be great for the CDL, but some concern maybe that like it'll take focus away, right? Like, let's say World Series of Warzone killing it in terms of viewership and all this stuff. They're partnered with Twitch for this, which is obviously interesting, right? Because the CDL's partnered with YouTube, so maybe that's
Mm.
going to change. But I think there's been some concern. I think Clayster was talking about it after one of the flank episodes on Zuma's stream that he's worried about like if things keep going like this in terms of how Activision's focused so much on the Warzone side, that what that means for the CDL is there less focus on it? Like we already kind of struggle getting competitive, developers to be focused on competitive play. Let alone now if all the focus goes to the Warzone side, which is understandable, but like I don't want to see a load of our pros leave for Warzone is
Yeah.
basically my fear.
Yeah, because where we're at right now with Warzone is that it's very separated from the current COD. The fact that it's a completely different COD as well. And so you can't be a pro player and really switch between them and have that be a really fluid swap. Takes like a little bit of getting used to. The movement's different. And so last year when Warzone came out, it grew Modern Warfare a lot because players would play Warzone, enjoy the game, and then want to play multiplayer because they're quite good with the mechanics. But you can't do that this year because Cold War and Warzone are so different. And so that's a big problem that I'm seeing is that the fact that the game isn't updated, you don't get those players migrating between the two. And so, it's a bit of an issue. But what I would suggest, it's not that easy, would be to always update Warzone with the current game. Just put in the mechanics, maybe a new map, but keep the exact same, just in-game. How do I put this? Just everything in the game the same, but just switch up the engine every year.
Yeah, I mean that could work. I like you just I know that they fear like turning people off, right? Like I'm sure that the people who are used to it, that's the last thing they want to do. Is like, but it might be the best thing to do, right? It's a good point, and
Mm.
I mean, who knows what Infinity Ward are coming out with? They're probably coming out with Modern Warfare 2. Probably just going to call it Modern Warfare 2 or something. Just like,
Mm,
you know, they probably will do, right?
they probably will. Yeah. If they do it and
So,
they release it with Modern Warfare 2 remastered as well, I wouldn't have much of a problem with it. But if it's just
interesting.
Modern Warfare 2 2, it's just weird. Like,
Yeah, yeah, agreed. It's funny because
I don't
like
know.
originally it was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and this one was
Yeah.
just Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So it's like I guess they'll have to come up with something else because the original was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, so they can't just do that. I don't know. They'll probably just chuck some word on the end like they usually do at this point.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean we've cracked through some of these topics already. Lots of good discussion here. One thing that I did wanted to mention just before we go on to the LA Thieves stuff, because that's also a big topic for this week, is this whole Crimsix situation. We think a video's coming soon. Maybe it'll be out by the time this podcast goes live. Who really knows? But there's been some talk, and I don't really know. Like my perspective is on this, on what Crim's saying about this. Like, if you're talking about legal issues, so he's talking about like legal entities. He talked about a while ago, and now he
Yeah.
said that he's sending cease and desists to Huke and I'm pretty sure Huke's brother who
Yeah.
like he said both Garlands. So I imagine because like Huke's brother did the tweets that said like at Crimsix, stop spreading rumors on stuff you don't know anything about, and like a cease and desist. I'm not a lawyer. To my understanding, it's like stop doing this, stop like slandering me, or I'm gonna sue you. Is like how it goes. So that's I guess why he's been
Literally.
talking to legal entities like lawyers and stuff. But it's like, isn't the idea that if you're doing some legal stuff, you don't like talk about it publicly? But I don't
Yeah.
know.
He's releasing like trailers for his video,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
little
I wrote it,
teasers.
but
It's good because it's growing like the hype for it, but also why? It's a bit strange, but
I
fair enough to
know.
him. Like the whole situation's strange, and I guess he has to kind of say something because though the Garland brothers are getting a little bit into him and making him look bad, but also Hook's made himself look bad in the last few months, so I guess he's not really helping himself either. But I really want to know what Crim's gonna say in this video. Like, what is this big thing that Hook did that he's made this whole video and is hyping it up about? Like, what do
It's
you
gonna be
reckon?
underwhelming, isn't it? That's what I think.
Yeah, of
I think like it's
course.
gonna be super hype, and then like Crim's just gonna sit there and just like. To be fair, Crim has been an absolute character lately, so I
Yeah,
can't complain at all. But it's probably one of those things where he comes out and he just says some things, and there's probably a few videos worth of content in there, but nothing spectacular. Because that's the thing. Like if you're Crimsix, you don't like it seems like he got along and probably still gets along relatively well with Hook, right? As person to
they
person.
high
Obviously,
fived
something
at
went
LAN.
wrong. They high fived at land. Yeah, like I don't think they like hate each other or anything. And
No,
if I'm Crim, like I'm seeing Hook just tarnish his own reputation with this LA Thieves stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to just hammer the guy into the ground, like kick him
yeah,
while he's down too much. Even though I'm sure there's some things to say, and I'm sure Crim wants to defend himself, but like, if I was Crim, I probably wouldn't be going balls to the wall on this one, but
mm,
it's tough to say. Crim does what
yeah,
he wants.
yeah. I do feel bad for Hook because I understand what it feels like to be in a slump and not want to do something, and I feel like he was just in a average place mentally and just couldn't bring himself to do that COVID test, or like there was just something blocking him mentally that forced him not to do it. And I just feel bad that if that's the case and we're giving him all this slander, that it's like, he was just in a rut, and it's just like really unfortunate timing, and just yeah, I feel bad for him honestly. But
Agreed. And this is a perfect segue because LA Thieves have done it again. They've made another move. You can't make it up. I mean, we kind of thought it was coming, but I wasn't expecting the move that like the full picture of what happened here because we talked last time. All right, like what do you do? Hook is well, we talked about it, right? Like he's not made the situation the best of him. I think Philip, we've talked this topic to death, but it was like Hook is great. What do you do? Do you try and punish him or whatever? Do you not trust him anymore on the team? Do you keep him benched? And they have done. I think the TJ for Drazah stuff, like, I think we pretty much expected that. Drazah's been really solid in challenges with the SMG. Like he went straight back to challenges after being benched initially, won the first event with an
yeah,
SMG. Like, Kenny's talked really highly of him and what he brings to the team and the vibes he brings and all this type of stuff. So I think him coming back is great. And yeah, at the end of the day, TJ's been underperforming. We can talk about TJ a bit more in a second, but it's they get John in, which is crazy. I think from John's perspective, this is really cool because I think a lot of people, like whenever I've made videos talking about John, people don't even know who this guy is, which is good in a way.
What?
It means there's new fans coming in. But I guarantee like half the people watching this probably don't know, well, maybe not half, but a lot of people watching this will not, or listening, will not know who John is because they've not
Nice.
been around COD for a couple of years. Let's say they came in through Modern Warfare or something, didn't see him compete for that season. It's not like he had a great season in Black Ops 4. He did win Fort Worth on LG, but this guy's a world champion, right? At the end of Black Ops 3, was the best player in the game, pretty much resoundingly. Could do it all with any weapon.
Easily. Yeah.
I mean, Infinite Warfare was great as well. He's been great on all the Black Ops games, pretty much, apart from Black Ops 4, he was a bit suspect, particularly good on frequency, I always remember. But apart from that, didn't do anything
Yeah.
special. But still, I mean, he's bided his time. He had the chance, I think, to go to like Seattle, or we don't know specifically the teams, but other teams offered him apparently that he's turned down because he wants, not to just join a team that's struggling and not going to make champs. He wants to get a good offer. He's got a good offer. He comes in. So John and Drazah on the SMGs, Kenny on the flex, Slasher on the main AR. What are your thoughts, Lion? Because it's interesting. Like, can John live up to the hype, I suppose, that people have been giving him the last couple of years? Can he reach that level that we know he has, but he didn't reach when he last competed in Black Ops 4?
Yeah, so I really like this team, but that's been the case with every single LA Thieves roster. On paper, they've all been really good and had potential, but not stuck together long enough to really find out what they can do. So I do like Kenny and Slasher on the ARs. That's crazy. We've already seen it on land. Those two performed. And in the whole year, Kenny's looked good. Slasher's come back and he looks great. Drazah coming back in. I think that's a good idea, but you could toss up between him or Huke. But Huke's unreliable right now, so it's kind of fair enough. Drazah in there, he's looked good, and he played good last year on OpTic's LA and everything. So giving him another chance is good. But with John, it is a little bit unusual because we don't know. He's like it's impossible to really know what level he's at, but we know his ceiling is crazy. Black Ops 3 is such an amazing player. World War 2 even, he looked amazing. He's won events on pretty much every single COD, and I believe that if he reaches that ceiling that we know he can, then the team's going to be great. But if we get a similar season to Black Ops 4 from him, is LA Thieves going to be looking at another change before champs? Like, we don't know how quickly they're going to move pieces in and out. So if things don't work, like they haven't worked all year, what do they do from then? Do you reckon they make another move before champs?
Oh, bloody hell. Like, I mean, I hope not.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like, I hope they're good and they don't have to, because they get clowned enough as it is. And I get what they're trying to do, but I also get, like, you've got to give your team some time to get better. Like, we talked about it before. If Los Angeles Thieves management were running Dallas, they'd have probably kicked a Vivid after his first two series where he dropped to 0.6 and not let him flourish and mold with the team. You could argue.
Yeah.
So, like, look, John, I think the interesting thing to me is, like, neither John or Drazah, to my perspective, are really like the incredibly fast aggro SMG. They're not like an Abeezy. Neither of them are an Abeezy. They're not a Standy. They're not this type of player. Which I think
Neptune.
is a bit of a concern. Yeah, exactly. A guy like
Yeah.
Neptune, because like Huke is that, well, not necessarily, but I think he can be that type of guy. Whereas I'm not sure John and Drazah have that, and I don't know. I want to know what we see out of Drazah first of all, but I don't think Drazah is going to be one that's putting up crazy numbers. I mean, Kenny talked about it recently, like last year when he joined their OGLA team, he did a lot for their team chemistry, making them much better as a team. But stats wise, he wasn't doing anything insane. So I really think that if this team wants to win a championship, they have the pieces on paper, I think. But John needs to be a beast. Like I think you need to see John drop in like a Beezy type, simp type numbers, honestly, if this team wants to win something, just because of how good FaZe are, first of all,
Yeah.
but also because of how important your SMG line is.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of faith in John here, right? And it's kind of interesting, before I throw it back to you, about like the Friendship League type stuff, because we hear a lot of discussion about, oh yeah, the Friendship League is over, or at least that was the talk at the time, that when JCap got rid of Slasher, it was like, okay, yeah, Friendship's no more. But now, okay, John's coming back into the team, and when JCap was talking about the fact that Venom, people were talking down on Venom just because of name value, and then it's like, well, are you getting John just because of name value, like, and experience with Slasher, or are you actually getting him because he's the best SMG challengers? It's a question you could ask. But chemistry is going to be important, right? So there's that as well.
We just need to see one of those SMG players bite the bullet and not play for high stats. They've got to play for their entry sub role to be able to let one of the other, the other SMG player drop those sort of simp numbers. You can't see two SMGs playing the exact same way, either playing for kills or playing for entry, because that's just going to throw off the chemistry of the team. And like, you need one of them to really not care about their stats. And yes, I will be frying them with my cards, but like, that's how it's going to have to be. Like, but to touch on, what was the second thing you talked about?
Well, I just talked about like John and like the friendship league and the chemistry
Yeah,
that he has with Slasher winning the world championship there back in
yeah,
2016.
yeah. I mean, that's only going to help them, I feel, because they have been successful before. The last time they played together was CoD Champs 2017 final, and that's finishing on a peak. Like, that's
Crazy,
crazy.
yeah.
But also, I think they might have brought John in because of the return to LAN as well, and his previous experience on LAN, and that could actually play a factor if he's, really comfortable there. But yeah,
I
we'll
like it,
see. We'll
yeah.
have to see.
And that's the thing, like, if you're John right now, you're coming into a team that you know is not hesitating to make changes. That's what I like
Mm.
about what Thieves have done, is that every single player knows that they have to earn their spots every day. And there's some teams that that's not the case for. You can turn up, you can slack off, and you're going to be fine. But for Thieves, if you're John and you don't perform and you have a poor couple of series, like, you can get dropped in a heartbeat. Like Huke is on the bench, TJ's on the bench, Venom's on the bench. Like it's not like you're just sitting there and have nothing to keep the fire going. So yeah, really interesting stuff. I guess a couple of more things to discuss on this. The Huke situation to me is interesting. Like, what does Huke do now? I think a lot of people have been wondering this because if you're Thieves, let's say you're really good. If you're bad, then maybe you decide to bring Huke back next season. Because fact of the matter is, I don't think you're going to sell him and get anywhere near as much back as you paid for him initially because his reputation and his stock on the downhill. So maybe it doesn't make too much business sense to sell him. At the same time, does he want to change tack? Does he want to, like, let's say the Halo comes out, does he consider going down that route? Like, there's a lot of questions here. I think that a lot of teams would really want to have him in and feel like they can get the best out of his situation. But I don't know. There's just so many questions, right? And I don't know if Crimsix's video is going to give any more insight onto this, but it's just so crazy to see a reigning world champion in the spot that he's in. And, Kenny was kind of implying that because he didn't turn up for the test or whatever and he didn't really try and fix it, it just felt to Kenny and the rest of the team like he didn't really want to play, like he wasn't really trying. Whether that means that whether that's an accurate indication of what Huke feels on the situation is tough to say, but crazy.
Yeah, I think he might have to just play challenges, and I know that's probably not what he wants to do. But is he trying to play challenges at all?
Not
Do
that
you
I
know?
know of. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I think he should do the Drazah did, like take the Drazah route and actually show that he still wants to be there, and like really try and prove his worth. And maybe if he like goes into challenges, wins an event, his stock is on the rise again. And like that's what he needs right now. He needs to be tradable or like be worth a lot to be traded or to be bought out by another team. Because right now, the only teams that would want to buy him, I would say, would be bottom 5 teams, bottom 4 maybe. And it's like, where else would he fit if it wasn't on those bottom 4 teams? Like I could see him maybe going to like a Florida for, I don't want to say for Havoc, but like that situation that could work. Maybe Minnesota would want him, but it's like, do they trust him right now? So I think probably what's a good idea, which is what he did back in 2016, would be to move to Halo again, like you said, and what we mentioned last week, because he knows that he's one of the world's best Halo players. And because the league in Halo has been thinning out recently because of the lack of a title, if he goes back, will he just be the best player again? Who knows? And so I think perhaps seeing where Halo goes, seeing if he enjoys the game, that could be a good option. But I think for now, he should try and play as much COD as possible so he doesn't fall out of the loop.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a really interesting discussion because like Slasher was in a weird, like a similar spot really when he got benched. But it's like
Mm.
when you're Slasher, when you've been benched once off a team like that, your stock survives, right? So Slasher,
Mm.
let's say they kept him benched for the rest of the season. I don't think Slasher would have any trouble just walking into another team. But like for Huke, it's a bit different, as you say, because it's not
We
just he
dropped
got
3
benched once,
times.
but he's now been benched 3 times. It's like other teams are going to be wary, right? And we'll talk about Optic towards the end of the episode. Of course, they wanted Huke, I'm pretty sure, back in the day, and like Hex did an eavesdrop podcast with him. So maybe there's a world in which Optic try and snag him. I don't really know, but depends what they're thinking. I agree, though. I think like Huke's got to consider what the options are. I think like challenges is it's not like a last resort, but I think for a lot of these players that when their stocks drop to a certain level, you kind of have to play challenges to keep your head in the game and to keep being considered, really, because I think Slasher has done impressively well, in my opinion, for like not really playing challenges at all and coming in and actually performing really well, which is, I think, a good sign for players who maybe don't go down that route. Because, like, I thought maybe having not played that much COD for months at a competitive level as Slasher might be tough to get back into the swing of things. Maybe not the
But
case.
he's an
So
exception though, because he's like one of the greatest COD players of all
yeah,
time.
that's true. He's
He's
Slasher.
won champs. His stock is a lot higher than Hook's right now. And yeah, I reckon it would be hard for him to come back into the swing of things. But also the fact that he went straight to LAN, something he's super accustomed to, I think that helped him on his way back because all these other players that he hadn't played against just hadn't been on LAN. But
Yeah, no, that's fair for sure. The other angle on this is the TJ stuff, which is I thought particularly interesting because like well, there was a lot of frustration here, let's just say, from Kenny's angle to TJ. So basically TJ was the one who leaked the roster before they even announced it. I think he's done that a couple of times now, and Kenny wasn't happy. He was like, TJ was like, I don't care, I don't give an F, all this type of stuff. And like Kenny was like, look, what don't you care about, right? Like, you're not trying as a player, like what's going on here? And then he comes out and says that he could have gone to Florida in place of Havoc, but
oh,
he
he didn't say that. Slack put it in the chat.
okay, yeah, that is true. So okay, so firstly it was TJ stopping their roster, and then Slack was like, all right, well, I'll do it. Yeah, I'm fine, I'll do it myself. And he decides to
Yeah.
leak it himself in the chat. So yeah, TJ said he could have gone to another team, that then was leaked by Slack in the chat to be for Florida for Havoc, while he was initially benched for Hook. But then there was a bit of miscommunication, it seemed, where he was saying to Kenny and the rest of the team that he still wanted to play with them just because he felt like that was what they wanted to hear. But he actually was quite happy to go elsewhere and feel like he would perform better on Florida. And of course, now they're actually got a lot better at Florida, and the chance is gone, and TJ's likely going to be on the bench for the rest of the season. So, really interesting stuff. And a similar question really for TJ, right? Like, what's next for him? Obviously, he's got his opportunity here, but this whole situation is not the best look for him. And he's played like pretty woefully this entire season. So if I was a team, I wouldn't be convinced because I think that attitude-wise, I think there's a lot of questions about TJ. That's just my thoughts, but
No, I agree with that. And I think the issue is pretty similar with Hook. Like, it's all about their mentality. They're great players, they're really talented, but it's like, does their commitment fit in with a team of players that really want to grind? Like, we don't know. And so with Tej, I think it was such a bad idea to really tarnish your own reputation within the CDL by letting out information that's not released by the teams yet. Because it's not like it was 2 years ago. It's not just the CWL and their players moving around and it's just like a big old shit show. Like this, it's actually a professional league, and you can't be giving out information like that. Surely the players are under NDA for that sort of information, and the fact that he's just giving it out like it's banter and like being a comedian, like it's just not a good look. Because I reckon that was just for a few laughs in the chat, and he was probably very annoyed about the situation, so he just didn't care. And that you just can't do that. But
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
next
respect your
year,
teammates and yeah, go on,
he's
man.
another player that has quite a high stock because of what he's done previously. And if we look at World War Two, because the next COD is more than likely going to be World War Two 2, he was one of the best players in that game, won 3 events on Rise. It's possible that he could just get a spot based off his reputation in that game. And so that's what I'm thinking, is that he kind of just does what he wants for the rest of the year and then can get a spot back in the league next year because of that.
Yeah, a team like LAG might do exactly that, right? Just be like, oh, you're
Yeah.
pretty good at World War Two. We bring you in. I think he's gonna have, if the league doesn't expand, I think he might have a tough time. I don't know. It depends on the players. A lot of the time, it's other players' perceptions of his stock
Mm.
still, which is a big
So
factor.
that's why it's the friendship league. Like that's what we mean by friendship league. It's about
Mm.
what other players think about players. It's not about what the fans think about those players.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And the thing is, there's always been a lack and continues to be of like great SMG players, and that's kind of like that's when TJ.
True.
If you're an assault rifle, let's say you're a methods, right? That's had a bit of a tough time. Like for you, it's quite hard because there's a lot of great ARs out there, and you're fighting for one spot on it on each team. Um, and for methods is not exactly in the greatest spot with the whole insight comes in, the team goes way better. All these types of questions aren't great for him, so it's kind of tough for him. But TJ. I still think he's got a chance because there's not many great SMG players, and TJ's always been at least a couple of years ago a very solid one. So I think he's still got a chance, but not the greatest couple of weeks for him. So speaking of all of that, then it's time for the groups, baby. The groups come out and they're really good ones, I think. So let's just run through them real quick. Group A is FaZe, OpTic, New York, Thieves, Legion, and the Ravens. And Group B is Dallas Empire, Toronto Ultra, Minnesota Rocker, Florida Mutineers, Los Angeles Guerrillas, and Seattle Surge. A couple of comments on this initially was that FaZe put Toronto in the other group. Then I think that's how it goes, right? Yeah, FaZe should have put Toronto in the other group. Then Dallas put Chicago in. Then I think OpTic would have had the next pick. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, and they kept New York on their side.
Yeah, like the way I'm confused about this because the way the video did it showed Toronto putting New York in Group A, and then it showed OpTic putting Rocker in Group B. But then the very next one was New York, I think, putting Subliners in, or New York putting Mutineers in.
Yeah.
That would be pretty impressive if they could put their own team in. It was, I don't know, I'm a bit confused, but regardless of the situation, Chicago put Rocker in Group B. And they may have been able to pick New York, or they could have definitely have picked Mutineers, right? Which is interesting to me that they put Rocker in the other group, just because they've beaten Rocker a couple of times now. I would say you'd be pretty confident against them. But Mutineers have been looking a lot better. So to me, I'd want Rocker in my group if I had the choice. But that's just my thinking.
Are they thinking about the bracket and how they don't want to play New York round one or something like that? Because in my opinion,
maybe.
What it looks like is Group A are a lot more top heavy, and then their bottom three teams aren't that good. I mean, let's say Thieves look how they've been looking. The bottom three are pretty weak, and the top three are very strong. And then we look at Group B, and it looks quite even apart from LAG. If Seattle Surge play like how they played in the last major, they are a threat. And then that whole group can upset any other team. Whereas Group A, it looks like it's going to be a pretty clear-cut winners bracket teams if OpTic play to their potential. So it's strange because I feel like if OpTic make it round one, they're probably playing a Dallas Empire or Toronto Ultra. And do they prefer to play one of those teams than play New York? Because why wouldn't you send New York to the other side? Like we talked to Easy Mac right after he did the show, and he found it extremely strange, and they were actually quite annoyed about the fact that New York is on their side because they find them to be probably the biggest threat in the league right now to their standings, apart from Toronto Ultra, obviously. But yeah, good groups, but I definitely would rather watch Group A. Like viewership is Group A, for sure.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, a lot of really interesting points there. I think that especially from the from the top heavy side of things, it's very much true. I just I'm kind of it does kind of confuse me, right? Like obviously Dallas Empire like having Toronto in their group so they can beat them, right? And that's good for them in the standings. And as you say, FaZe this entire season, who have they lost to? They lost once to LAG, they've lost I think once to Toronto, and they've lost twice. Yeah, of course, yeah. And then 2 to New York, yeah. So like New York seem to still be the danger team to FaZe in best of fives. Toronto are still certainly there as well. But yeah, this group A, I mean, we can kind of discuss it. I think the Ravens, I don't know if they're making any changes. Zed's kind of been tweeting as if he might be back in the team, but I don't really think that's the case. But who knows? They could do anything. They've nearly made as many changes as the Thieves have, maybe even more at times in the season. I'm pretty sure it was when they, that whole parasite, all this type of stuff. I don't think Ravens are going to be much of a threat here. Legion always have an upset in them, I think. I think they can always upset a team. They play OpTic on the first day, and you can't take a series of that lightly if you're OpTic at all.
You're gassing them. You're gassing them.
Am I gassing them?
You're gassing them.
I think they're all right.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me check.
Have a look. Maybe I'm speaking out the arse there.
I shouldn't trash them too much, but
I just remember they upset Thieves last. Was it Thieves?
Oh, that's
last
not an upset
stage.
though, is it?
I don't know.
Is that an upset?
Maybe they are just awful. I don't know.
57 in maps. They've lost the most. Oh no, they haven't
Right,
lost the most, but they've
see, there
won
you
the
go.
least
They're
amount of
great.
maps. No, they're amazing.
Right, okay. Let me just run through their schedule history here. See who they've beaten last. Okay, they beat Thieves. They beat Florida in stage. Okay, they don't have many good wins to their name. I must admit that. But look, I still think they might
LAG,
have
LAG
a
are the
win in
upset
them.
team, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true because they can win searches at least.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe that's right. I don't know. I think they were easily overlooked. That's all I'll say. But
yeah. I mean, for good reason.
fair enough. I'll give you that. But still, I mean, even if Legion don't win a series apart from the Ravens, top four I think is like honestly kind of great. Like FaZe, it in a way the group might be boring because I think FaZe and Ravens guaranteed. Well, not necessarily guaranteed, but like I would be very
Pretty
surprised.
much.
Pretty
Yeah.
much guaranteed. But then it's like OpTic, New York, and Thieves. That's actually really spicy, I think, because New York need to prove that they're a lot better now with Asim in the team. He's now in Texas. They should be a lot better. But still,
Mm.
I think they relied, when they were having their really good run of form in stage four or stage three, sorry, when they made the grand finals, they were relying heavily on their hard point. They like didn't lose a hard point. And even though
Yeah.
their control and search was suspect, that would be enough to get them over the line because they were just guaranteed 2 series wins. But now other teams have got better. They've had a little bit of time off with the team. They've got to prove once again that they are like the second best team in the league, if not the best, if they want to go that way. And then you've got OpTic, who always a question mark. Seems like they can beat anyone, lose to anyone at some times. And then Thieves, the John team. I mean, it's super exciting to be honest, like how that 2-3-4 shapes up. But I agree in Group B, like I don't know how the hell that's going to go. Because first, I don't know who's finishing first seed. Like Ultra or Empire could probably take that one. Who knows what happens with like Mutineers? They could catch fire. I think Mutineers were unlucky not to get winners last time. I
Yeah.
think that they would be unlucky not to get it this time if they play well. Rocket still little bit suspect. I agree that Gorillas are an upset team, and I think Surge, if they keep playing how they are, they could certainly be in with a fight. So I think Group B is going to have by far the more unpredictable matches, but Group A is a massive battle, I think, for what's going to be an incredibly important winners bracket spot.
Yeah, because OpTic have been looking super shaky against top teams. New York spent that time off, so we don't really know where they are right now. And you made a good point about how they relied on hardpoint. Will they still be that dominant hardpoint team? Probably not quite as much, but we have been surprised all year with how good New York have been. So they might just come out and look really good. Thieves, no idea. Like they could be an amazing team. They could be bottom of the barrel again. So it's strange. They're sitting in that 7 seed, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are safe for champs most likely, but they need to get a good result here to have some momentum going into champs and hopefully not make another change. Because another change for champs, you're really chalking the season. There's no point really anymore. Because they're not going to have enough time to be able to compete with these top teams, especially FaZe. So they need to get a good stage just for that. Paris, don't want to trash on them too much, even though I just did. But man, they need to find something. I think they're still eligible to make champs, but they're only on like 90 points or something, aren't they? Let me take a look. Oh yeah, they're on 90.
Let's
Yeah,
have a look. Yeah,
and
you're
it's
bang on the
just
money.
yeah, and then London as well on 80. It's pretty much chalk for those two teams. But yeah, I can't wait for that Group A, and especially OpTic versus LA, because with a new side on LA, it should be exciting to see John come up against OpTic for the first time this year.
Oh yeah, John always did pretty well against them. I mean, yeah, that's Saturday, 24th of July, the second final, the penultimate day of action. OpTic Thieves. Exciting stuff for sure. So yeah, I mean, honestly, these groups are great, and it's all or nothing at this point. And I agree. Like in previous seasons, teams would be formed and like immediately show like great promise to do really well. Like nowadays, especially against a team like FaZe, like they they've like innovated the meta. They're the best team individually, and teamwork wise, they're just so tough to deal with. And Toronto are a
coaching-wise,
similar team, coaching wise. I mean, it's tough not to sing the praises of the squads. You got Easy Mac. Like, what more could you want?
oh,
You know,
it's all you need.
yeah,
Get rid
get
of the
Easy Mac in it.
coaches.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed
Just need that
W.
boy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. How do you beat FaZe? And I think a few years ago you could form a team of just talent and like do really well at an event. But nowadays, the amount of preparation that goes in, and like consistency these teams have, it's just so tough to win by just flicking a switch and getting good for one event. Which is why I agree. Like, I don't think Thieves, if they want to win champs, I don't think they can make a change. They just have to ride this one out. So to finish off the episode, I think it's been a banger. We're going to answer a viewer question. If you guys want to answer your own or ask your own viewer questions, feel free to drop. We can either reply to the tweets or head down to the Discord. We'll link down below. There's a channel called Podcast Questions. Leave them in there. This question from Taylor, I thought was very interesting. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about Scump and Formal lately, or just OpTic in general. It's always the big topic, right? They're the most fans. Fans want to see them win. They used to be the dynasty team, and nowadays it's so hard to win. It just is what it is. But there's a lot of talk, especially with the Warzone stuff and Scump talking about how he's not in the best headspace mentally. The question runs: I have this burning question. I can't decide the answer. When Formal and Scump eventually retire, who is going to replace them on OpTic? Do you think it's someone in the league right now, or someone maybe we haven't even heard of yet? Interesting question. I think that there's a couple of different angles to take on this. I kind of wanted to just talk around the question, and then we can maybe come to some sort of answer. Like, I don't know if Formal and Scump are going to retire this season. I obviously hope that's not the case. I hope they continue for like another 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. Whatever happens, right? But that's OpTic's problem right now in a way, right? Like, looking at it from the angle of, let's say OpTic finish out this season. I think a lot of people would be surprised if they won Stage 5 or Champs, like however way it goes. I think that'd be a massive upset, to be honest, if it happens. Therefore, do OpTic have to consider, like, if OpTic don't win an event this season, they don't even get particularly close, like making a finals, do you want to win at the end of the day, right? Like, what changes are you considering to make? It's a big question. What you do there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a topic that they have to discuss. Problem is, Scump and Formal are virtually irreplaceable and undroppable, but Envoy and Dashi have also earned their spot. So it's like, what do you do right at the end of the season if it doesn't work?
Yeah, Scump you can't really replace. It's Scump.
Never
He
gonna
is OpTic CoD. Formal's his duo. Can't do it. So to answer the question, he said who's going to replace them? Like, who's going to be their, the younger generation that is them to OpTic? And they've already got them on the teams. Envoy is young Scump, Dashy's young Formal. And so they just bring in 2 other players to join them. They've already passed on their brands to Envoy and Dashy, like they're a part of this. And so it's like their replacements are already on their team, if you get what I mean.
I agree
So
with that.
like, yeah, so they're just going to pick up 2 new young guns. Imagine if you pull in Simp and Abeezy onto that team. Or you can't really because it's 3 SMGs. But it's like, then that becomes OpTic. So like, it reminds me of in 2014 when they got rid of Proofy and Clayster and brought in Formal and Crimsix, these 2 young, incredible players that were considered the best in the game, and then they took over. Like, that's what I think OpTic are going to do once those 2 retire, is put all their stock into Dashy and Envoy, and then have these 2 new absolute superstars that come in and help carry them to championships. So I don't think you replace either of those players or even make a change, because like, we know that this team on paper is unbelievable. They don't need to make a change for talent. What they need to make a change is a change within how they play the game. And so will a new COD next year allow them to flourish more so? Or will it actually make things worse? We don't know. And so I think wait until the next COD, and I've said this before, the next COD could completely change everything. And so it might suit Formal and he becomes the best AR in the game again. So it's like, until that happens, until we actually know and they have consistent years of not reaching that peak, then that's when you start having these questions. But for now, I don't think Scump or Formal is replaceable in any capacity, and Envoy and Dashy are like their next generation.
I agree completely. I think if you're OpTic, like, Envoy and Dashy are players that you've built as part of the brand, and as you say, they are the ideal replacements, if anything, for the T2P guys, right? So that's the concern to me, is like, well, let's say that the current 4, if they don't have the success this year, next year's going to like World War II. It's like Scump's least favorite COD ever, which is also got to be considered. So I don't know, if Scump and Formal still feel like they can win, they'll stick around, no doubt. But it's like, you don't want to replace Envoy and Dashy because they're set up to be that next OpTic generation. Whenever that might have to kick into effect. So that's really the concern. I guess yeah, I agree with that answer in terms of they'll be replaced internally, but I guess the question is like, if it was to happen, who do you like at least like one player that you might grab, right? Because it's tough to say if they would just disappear tomorrow. Because I'd want to put a veteran on there, but it's
The
like,
return of Octane.
oh,
Mm.
wow.
It would be such a storyline as well.
That would be crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
That could be really interesting though. Because like,
Yeah.
Slash is still on Thieves. I don't think it's gonna happen. But like
No, that
it's
would be
fun to
weird as
speculate.
well.
It'd be
That
so
would be like
weird, I
Dennis
think.
Rodman going to the Bulls. Like it feels
Yeah, of
wrong.
course, of course.
Can't
I'm
do
very
that.
familiar with that one.
You'd be like,
Yeah,
"Hey."
yeah, yeah. No.
But yeah, it's like a rival player coming to that team. I don't think it would work. I think Octane coming back is perfect because it just matches up with storylines. So
Yeah,
yeah,
agreed. Interesting. I think I mean, who's the players they wanted in the past? They wanted like World War II days. They wanted to get they
Huke
wanted
and
to get
Octane.
Zuma. They wanted to get John. They wanted to get Huke was the big one. They obviously did get Octane in the end. I think that's kind of what they wanted, right? Huke and Octane.
Mm,
So I still I don't know. I don't know what you do exactly. I think that Huke could be a target, but and I think he was even Heck said right when Huke was a free agent, he was like, I had to think. Like I
yeah,
didn't just dismiss. I was like, Huke's on the market. I've got to at least engage brain for a couple of seconds as to whether I can make a move, and then consider that the team we've got right now is fine. But yeah, great question. I think that there's a lot to discuss on that. I don't think it'll be anyone that we haven't heard of yet or anything. I think it'll be established
no,
players in the league. That's how Optic roll. They don't have an academy team for a reason. And Heck said if they did get an academy team, he'd bring in like Halo players and Gears of War players and people like that that have brands that can help raise the profile. So yeah, I think that'll just about do it, Lion. Any last thoughts before we finish off what's been an absolute cracker and hopefully Austin's hopefully his power comes back on soon enough.
man, sitting in the dark. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Nah, it's just a good episode, good chats. Excited for the next few weeks of COD. Should be good, and then champs. So, exciting times.
Beautiful stuff. Well, leave us a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. Thoughts, yeah, ratings on the Spotify, Apple podcasts if Tim Cook wants to put it up there. Sometimes we have issues with that, but hopefully all good this time round. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching as always, and we will see you next time.